With Week 10 in the rearview mirror of the 2024 college football season, where does the playoff picture currently stand? We'll give you our playoff picture rankings here in a second. First things first, make sure you are subscribed right here. We will get the official college football playoff rankings this Tuesday. I don't think anything else is going on this Tuesday night, so that should be great. But make sure you're dialed in because we will have reaction to that. We will have thoughts, concerns, objections to that. But this is where we think the college football playoff picture rankings currently stand coming out of Week 10. Now, full disclaimer, because I know we're going to get comments on this. Whenever I post it on my socials, we get comments on this. It says, bro does not understand the format. Like, we don't get what the 12-team playoff looks like. This is not a bracket, all right? Hear me. This is not how I think it'll be seeded. This, to me, is the rankings in accordance with if they were all like at-large bids, okay? So, yes, I understand you can't have two SEC teams or two Big Ten teams within your top four. With that being said now, we also have designated the 12 spot for us on this playoff picture rankings list to the G5, just to try and account for the playoff picture as a whole, if you will. So, with that being said, let's jump right into it. At number 12, our G5 rep is Boise State. Now, Boise State has continued to just run the football at a really high level. Like, Ashton Jeanty has been ridiculously productive. And honestly, the thing that I think is impressive about him is he always finds a way to break loose regardless of what happens early on in the game. Early on, UNLV got him in a fish tank, right? They're making a statement. Ashton Jeanty, you will not run the football on us. And then he goes out and goes over 100 yards. Again, it happens this past weekend. Ashton Jeanty, you're not going to beat us. And then Ashton Jeanty goes over 100 yards. So I don't want to speak just about Ashton Jeanty when it comes to Boise State, but that has definitely been the headline for them. We keep saying this. If they win the Mountain West and their only blemish on their record is a 3-point loss to who many people would consider the best team in college football right now, at their place, tough to argue with. So Boise State for us, the G5 rep, they are the 12th seed. Making sure we say this again, that is the only auto bid we are accounting for in our playoff picture rankings. So if we didn't think a Big 12 team was good enough to be in this top 12, we want to talk about them. However, I do think BYU is good enough. They are at number 11 for us. Still unbeaten. Now, while I don't trust the Big 12 at all, I still think that BYU, with what they've done at this point in the year, deserves some credit. The Holy War with them in Utah next week, November 9th. We'll see. But they're the last unblemished team in the Big 12, and BYU deserves some credit for what they've done at this point in the season. And they got them at number 11 this week for us in the playoff picture rankings. Now, at number 10, this is going to get some pushback. That's totally fine. I got Texas A&M. Now, we were a lot higher on Texas A&M last week than most folks were. We had them at number 6 in our playoff picture rankings last week, so they have dropped a bit in our rankings. Last night's loss to South Carolina was an embarrassing loss. It was not a bad opponent. Like, South Carolina is a good football team. Don't let those 3 losses in their record fool you. Ole Miss, I think, is a good football team they lost to. Alabama played them close, lost to them. LSU should have beat LSU if Lenore Stellar stays healthy. With that being said, though, I still think for Texas A&M, they are good enough to match up with anybody in the country. They did not make the plays last night to beat South Carolina, but still, the loss to South Carolina at their place and the loss to Notre Dame to start the year with Marcel Reed at quarterback, this A&M team is a force, and I think they're good enough to match up with anybody in America. So for me, I have A&M at 10 on our list this week. Now at number 9, a team that y'all have been clamoring for, and they're in the rankings this week, Notre Dame. I love the sense of urgency we see from them. I've said it a couple times on different points throughout our show, our live show. Another reason to be subscribed, because we do a live show here 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. The loss to NIU, in the moment, it hurt. I mean, it was like vinegar. It was like crow. It was awful. However, since the NIU game, Notre Dame has had a real sense of urgency. In a bizarre way, the loss to NIU might be Notre Dame's greatest gift because it's removed the safety net from them and caused them to play their best football, I believe, every single week, or at least bring a good enough product to the table to win the ball game. Also, their path now pretty manageable. Like, you thought Florida State was going to be, your big hurdle on your schedule. Florida State has won 1 football game, so they will not be a hurdle for Notre Dame, or they shouldn't be, rather. USC, end of the year. I'm not saying it couldn't still be tricky, but like, you feel a lot better about that game right now than you did before the year. You have a ranked win over Navy. Shout out to Navy. That's a dub for Notre Dame, and you'll take that. Army could be a little bit tricky, but still, if you beat Army, it's another ranked win. And the path I'm trying to say here for Notre Dame, if they win out, they're in the college football playoff. But this week, we have them at number 9 in our playoff picture rankings. At number 8, I got Tennessee. Just continuing to progress, continuing to do the right things. And I think the overall optics around Tennessee are a little bit funny because we are assessing Tennessee, whether we know it or not, against the 2022 team because of who they have at quarterback with all his physical giftings of Nico Iamaleava, and we're a year removed from the Joe Milton experience. So you're saying, okay, they just need a quarterback to get this thing humming, right? Well, it hasn't looked very 2022-ish to this point, but I do think it's worth noting that they've continued to trend upward. Yesterday against Kentucky wasn't the cleanest football game overall. They missed 3 field goals, but still, Nico goes for almost 300 yards. The defense, some funny things in the box score. They still hold Kentucky to 18 points. They run the football at a high level. Tennessee now, if they continue to trend the way they're trending, they're going to be a tough out when it comes to the college football playoff, should they find themselves in the dance. This week, we got them at number 8 in our playoff picture rankings. Also, quick side note here, I should have said it at the top, but I'll say it right now. This is not a projection or prediction. These are current rankings. So if Tennessee loses another game, they won't be in these playoff picture rankings at the same spot, at least next week. Food for thought. At number 7, a team that did lose a game yesterday, Penn State. I still think Penn State's good. They're just not as good as Ohio State. And is that, the worst thing in the world? No. Penn State at 11-1 can still make the college football playoff. They need to find a way to be explosive offensively. And not just against the teams like a Wisconsin or insert whatever Big Ten team you want to. I need them to find some firepower to put pressure on Ohio State. Because 6 points on offense, not going to cut it. Now, they drove the football at times, but there was a very, very clear difference from a talent level between what Ohio State had and what Penn State had. So I don't think Penn State's a bad football team. They could still, I'll be surprised if they don't make the college football playoff. But I think there's still a gap there between Penn State and the elites. But even with that being said, Penn State, a one-loss team, they're at number 7 for us in our playoff picture rankings. How about a no-loss team next? How about Miami? I said that in our reaction to I said this in our reaction video for Miami's game against Duke yesterday, that Miami is like that kid in class that doesn't do their homework. They show up late. Sometimes they don't show up at all. Sometimes they don't turn in their assignments. They do all the wrong things, but they still get straight A's. That's Miami right now. They start slow. Sometimes they turn the football over. Sometimes they play bad defense. Still unbeaten. So say what you want about them. You're going to have to out-horsepower them or create a large enough margin early on in the football game when Miami's messing around to beat them. Nobody's done that yet. This is going to make Miami fans mad, but I'll say this because I said it in our reaction video. I want to make sure I say it again. I think Miami would benefit from losing a game in the regular season. Why? Because Miami, when they have a sense of urgency, they are borderline unstoppable on offense. I want to see that from the jump. And I'm curious now if Miami would drop a game to someone if we see the Notre Dame effect for them, what they had against NIU, where they start playing better football with more urgency after that. Maybe you'd see the same thing for Miami. So Miami fans are like, we don't want to lose. I hear you. I'm not saying you have to lose, but I am wondering if a loss maybe would create the proper amount of urgency for this Miami team so you could play a full 4-quarter game. It is what it is. They're at 6 this week. At number 5, a team that trailed yesterday for the first time, Indiana. And then they went on to throttle Michigan State. So the Ohio State game is the one you have circled for Indiana. But if you haven't lost and you've only trailed for one game for a short period of time, the Fighting Kurt Cignettis, baby. They're rolling. And I'll go back to this again. The confidence they play with, the aura, if you will, of what they believe about themselves, it's dangerous. That there is no lacking of belief. There is no surprise within that Indiana roster. They believe they should be here, and they're playing like it. So Indiana at 5 for us this week. Now I have Texas at 4. Don't let those 2 games for Texas throw you off the scent of what they are. They're still a really good football team. They lost to Georgia. Cool. Georgia's Georgia. From a roster level, when they're on, they're tough to beat. And they were tough to beat. Then you went out and played Vanderbilt, at Vanderbilt. Can we stop talking about Vandy like there's some run-in-the-mill, one win kind of, like they're a real deal tough out right now. And I know optically it's tough for us to get on board with that Vandy's actually a decent win, But Vandy's a decent football team, and you went to their place and beat them. So with Quinn Ewers at quarterback, Steve Sarkisian calling the show, and that roster in Austin, Texas, Texas is still a very good football team. And if you don't believe that, they will make you believe that here in the near future. Promise you. At 3, I have Georgia. They're good enough to win the national championship. I just want to see them go Jason Kelsey to Heckler's iPhone on somebody. That's not a top-tier team. Because we see them go out and beat a Texas team at their place by 2 scores when they're number 1 in America are the Longhorns. But then we see them play with their food against Florida, play with their food against Mississippi State, play with their food in the first half against Auburn, mess around with Kentucky for the better part of 4 quarters. And I don't fault you for winning a football game, but I want to see Georgia play 4 quarters where they just go on the offensive, maybe literally and metaphorically, and just take it to somebody that doesn't have a logo or a spot that would bring you extra juice externally. But still, Georgia, with what they are on that roster, with who their head coach is, Georgia for me, number 3 in the country as of this week. At number 2, I got Ohio State. A 1-point loss to the team that we believe is the best in the country right now. They have all the pieces. All the pieces in the world is Ohio State. The thing with them is going to be, can they continue to trend the right direction? We say it every single week. What they did yesterday, I think, should be a massive confidence boost for Ohio State fans, because Chip Kelly now, he showed you yet again why you hired him to be the OC. Offensive line dinged up. It's musical chairs up there. You got your guard shifting out to tackle for the first time in his life. And what do? Run the football on the road against one of the best defenses in the country, a week removed from running for 2 yards a carry against Nebraska at home. Ohio State's really good. Ohio State has all the chops and the makings to be a national title team. It's just about, can they meet the moment consistently? Can Will Howard meet the moment consistently? But they got all the pieces, I believe, to go win the whole darn thing. And the team that has played the, I think, most consistent brand of football as of late, and who we have at number 1 this week, is Oregon. They are machine-like. Dan Lanning has got this team dialed in to where they are approaching every game the same. I said it in our reaction video for them in their win over Michigan. I'll say it again right now. I love the fact that they do not play to a spot or to a logo, whether it's Ohio State or whether it's Purdue on a Friday night on the road. They are playing the same level of intensity. That's dangerous if that's the Oregon team you get here in December and into January. Oregon's a wagon, and they are playing to their level of roster talent. They got their 2 games out of the way early where they were kind of, I don't know if lackadaisical or sleepwalk or just not totally dialed in. Those first 2 games for Oregon, those are a thing of the past, right? Oregon, the best team in America right now, and they have made a case for that as well. So could Georgia win the whole darn thing? Yeah, maybe so. But Oregon right now, tough to argue with the resume and the way they're operating. So to recap it here, the team at number 12 for us in our G5 slot, Boise State. At number 11, we got BYU. At 10, I got A&M. Not selling my stock just yet. Notre Dame at 9, Tennessee at 8, Penn State at 7, Miami at 6, Indiana at 5. Top 4 is very intriguing. I got Texas at 4, Georgia at 3, Ohio State at 2, and Oregon at 1. Of those top 4, none of them would surprise me if they won your national championship. But with that being said, those are our playoff picture rankings after week 10 of the college football season. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, @JD PicKell. Let me know how you feel about the college football playoff picture after this past weekend. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.